Chapter 78. Kara. I do my best not to panic. Blue's not here. My mind supplies a little bit late as I fight the blush rising on my face. The realization that I was confessing to an empty room doesn't help the way the heat goes to my cheeks, and it's all I can do to just press my lips together and not rely on the wall for support. Blue's not here. He didn't get back last night, and some absurd part of me is glad that he isn't here. Not only because the entirety of my little confession has my heart beating out of my chest, cursing my innate lack of eloquence, but also because that means he didn't have to suffer my drunkenness last night. I don't remember exactly what happened the last time I'd gotten a little more than tipsy. I'm just glad that whatever happened seemed to stop with some intense cuddling. It was odd waking up tangled around Blue, but it was probably better than the alternatives. Especially when I still don't exactly trust that he'll tell me to ship my sorry ass out when he's feeling uncomfortable. Still, I can't deny how fast my pulse is, or the little shred of doubt that's creeping into my mind. Blue's not here, so he must be at Shauna's. I told her to take him with her yesterday, but I never actually told her that she needed to bring him back after school. I just assumed that she would have kept the arrangement we had when I was suspended. She had her last exam yesterday. There would have been no reason to go back. No other assignments or deadlines, but there are other reasons to keep Blue overnight. This is the start of the longest break our familiars have ever experienced, and Ande is quite fond of Blue, and Shauna hasn't ever really been able to deny a request from Ande. He might have been worried about how much time it would be before he saw his friend again, requesting a sleepover because his mistress would be busy attending another function anyways. It doesn't seem entirely outside the realm of possibility. Shauna had to go to the party last night, so she wouldn't have been able to bring him. At least, I don't think so. There's so many rules about what kind of formal allows for familiars that it's hard to keep it all straight in my head. It's entirely possible that she would have had to leave Ande at home, so it might have made sense to her to give him the chance to have a friend over. Plus, she probably guessed that I wouldn't get back until late from my own little party. I guess she figured that it would have been better to have Blue with someone attentive. I slept the sleep of the dead yesterday. I don't think I would have woken up if the house was on fire, let alone if Blue needed me. I try not to let it hurt when I think about how much I've failed Blue lately. Suddenly, I really don't want to be in the bedroom. It feels wrong to be in here without Blue. Funny enough, it's turned into more Blue's room than mine. We've come to share a lot of the burdens of domestic maintenance. We clean and cook for each other, but with the amount of time I've been sinking into my research, I feel like more of a ghost in this house. Stars, I've been such a dick. I don't know what possessed me. I always get like this when I work on projects. I throw myself into work and I push away fucking everything. My body hurts, and I know I've been neglecting myself just as much as Blue, just as much as Shauna and all the other people in my life. It's not fair to the people around me. It isn't, and it's something I need to get better at. But I can't help the lightness in my chest at the thought of being done. The overwhelming sense of relief that always follows these more intense projects is pretty nice. Only this time it comes with the added benefit of a break in all aspects. Most of the time, as soon as I've finished one project, another problem rears its ugly head and demands my attention. Luckily, the end of this project managed to coincide nicely with the end of the semester. A nice little break that will allow for some much-needed decompression. Best to come out of these projects with a light heart and a light head. Lightheaded. There's a moment where the world around me swirls, and the light and colors all blend together to the point that I have to lean against the wall. There's a pounding in my temples and a dryness at the back of my throat. It's my body's way of oh so subtly telling me that I've gone too far. I feel sick. But all it does is remind me of just how behind I am with all the things I need to do around the house. Blue goes outside, but he doesn't like to stay out there for too long. I don't know why the Almacs seem not to like him. but they get antsy when Blue's in their space too long. I need to check on them, make sure the garden is still fine, clean the kitchen and the workshop, given how much I've been neglecting that. There's plenty of things to do, but the pulse of pain in my head reminds me that I'm probably overdue for my tea. That, and probably some food. Stars know an empty stomach makes the nausea worse. I need to go shopping. I haven't had too much time to engage in any remotely human activities. I don't have a lot to work with, but it's more than enough to shove something in my face to stave off the worst of the nausea while I settle into my cup of tea. There's not a lot to do. The kitchen isn't a mess, not like I thought it would be. I'm so used to being alone for these workaholic periods. I'm used to finishing up and finally coming to terms with the hellhole that I've accustomed myself to living in while I finished. I keep forgetting just how much Blue takes upon himself, especially when no one is there to help him set reasonable limits. It's probably good that Blue got the chance to get out of the house. He needed a break, and I've been so caught up in everything that I haven't really had the chance to give him the time he deserves. He needs his friends. I'm just glad that he has people he can rely on. The regularized tasks, the cleaning, and the organizing should help, but all it does is make me even more antsy. I can't bring myself to go into the bedroom. I try to reason with myself. Blue's good at upkeep. I'm sure he would have changed out the sheets on his own. I'm sure he would have cleaned up after himself. Stars know. He's been cleaning up after me for the last few weeks. I try not to feel too guilty. As bad as I've been, I try to comfort myself with the knowledge that it's over now. We've got time now. And stars know I'll be spoiling the hell out of him for the entirety of break. That gives me some resolve as I waste time scrubbing imaginary grime out of the tiles. If nothing else, Blue deserves to know that he isn't expected to do all the cleaning. Eventually, my hands are stinking and I smell like cleaning fluid, but the house looks better. That, and my workshop doesn't look like a war zone anymore. Zadik tolerated as much of my cleaning as he could and all but chased me off of my own desk when I tried to go over it again with some wood polish. Still, even with his frantic little protest, there's still something off. It's unsettling. As I go through my daily tasks, it feels strange and wrong. It's uncomfortable, like there's something at the back of my mind that demands attention, something important that I've forgotten. It takes more energy than it should to go through the mundane actions I'm trying to force from my body, and it's only once I've finished cleaning the house that I actually understand why. It's weird, cooking for one. It's something that I had gotten used to, but there's a pain in my chest as I have to put away some of what I've retrieved from the icebox. It's weird having no one else home. I'd gotten used to the company, the noise, the sight and sound and warmth that comes with sharing a living space with someone. I'd had years getting used to my self-imposed isolation, but stars know. It only took one semester of someone living with me, and I'm going into fucking withdrawal the second they're out. I can't be home right now. I just can't. I have no idea when Shauna's going to feel like bringing Blue back, or rather, when Ande is going to feel like giving Blue up. But I can't be here any longer. The silence is starting to play on my nerves, and I need to do something to at least provide the illusion of productivity. We need groceries anyways. I scribble out a quick note and tuck it into the door. It's still not quite midday, and I don't want to be a dick. I certainly don't want to recreate that little scene I made when I tried to pick Blue up from his lessons. Shauna's a good host, and a hell of a lot more receptive than I've been in the past few weeks. And Ande has become a really close friend of Blue's. I don't want to force them apart. I'll just wait until they're done saying their goodbyes. I'm sure Shauna will take Blue home when they're done. The walk does me some good. It's nice to get out, to let myself think about anything else. It's cold, but the bite of the air stays neatly confined to my nose and cheeks in a way that makes me feel like a child. It makes me crave sugar and soft things, warm drinks and company. There's an odd, stupid glee that comes from snuggling further into the soft fabric of my scarf, warm breath reheating chilled skin. It's nice to be outside and not constantly have the impending deadline anxiety I've been carrying everywhere lately. So nice that I go a little further than I mean to. There's a bigger grocery in the Un district, so I just pretend that it was on purpose as I start going through the aisles. There's an added benefit of not knowing anyone in this district. No one's going to stop me and engage me in conversation, or ask me about Blue. It's almost peaceful. There's a collection of vigil candles in an elaborate stack. Different colors and sizes make up an almost gaudy display as the glossy images of the people in the advertisement stare out into the shop. It's a little unsettling, and more than a little unnecessary. Even without the little advertising placard, it's obvious they're for candle lights, something that I'd honestly forgotten about until this point. I can't help but chuckle at the thought. Soraya's general store is pretty small. They don't usually carry any holiday stuff aside from their normal items that have been recolored and packaged. The candles are beautiful. Even as simply made as they are, these are nearly mage quality. I'm not as consistent as some, but I don't mind the lighting ceremony. It's pretty nice, and it gets people together. Even if we don't go to one of the gatherings, it would be nice to light candles. Blue has someone to mourn this year. At least one, officially, that I know of. I doubt he's ever had the opportunity to actually participate. One of the candles finds its way into my basket, and my thoughts turn to the other tradition of the season. If I really want to celebrate candlelight's right with Blue, then he needs a gift. I think it helps that I've been looking for an outlet to spoil Blue. His favorite foods make their way into my basket. That and some of the things that we haven't tried yet. Things I hope he might like. I feel like a blushing preteen, but stars if it doesn't make me grin like an idiot in the middle of the grocer's. There's a little stand with colored handmade wax glosses and creams, scented bath salts that are packaged up in the colorful wrappings of the season. It's not the store's brand, probably some seasonal partnership with some other supplier. I nearly burst out laughing in the middle of the store as I look over the newest product that they seem to be pushing. Stars. I know exactly what I'm getting Blue for candle lights. It's well past midday by the time I get back to the house, which makes it all the more concerning that the note is still on the door. It's not that they didn't see it, just that they seem to not have actually gotten back yet. They should have been back by now. Right? I try not to think too hard about it as I put away the groceries and find a good hiding place for my presents for Blue. It's probably fine. There's nothing to worry about. Blue's with friends. I shouldn't be worried. I shouldn't be breathing down his neck while he's having a good time. But as the hours pass, I can't help but worry. I make a mess and clean the kitchen while I let it bake. Cinnamon sugar buns are nice. They're sticky and require time to rise. It's a natural exercise in patience. Still, the second they're in the oven, my mind goes right back to worrying. Was Shauna actually planning on bringing Blue back? I mean, I get Ande being attached, but she really should have told me if she was planning on keeping Blue this long. Then again, maybe this is my fault. Shauna had said she had to get going for a party her father was throwing. I don't know how long it will take her to travel, but she's probably going to get going fairly soon. Maybe she wanted me to pick him up. The buns make a nice peace offering, if this was really my mistake. And if not, then a little extra sugar never hurt anyone. I'm still used to making sweets when I'm stressed, but knowing that Blue doesn't favor them doesn't really motivate me to keep them in the house. If nothing else, it will keep Shauna from biting my head off for leaving Blue with her. The trip to Shauna's house isn't any longer than usual, but every stars-damned step is agony. This was a bad idea. I shouldn't have come. Or rather, I shouldn't have left Blue alone for so long. There's the beginnings of a headache pulsing across my temples, slow and rhythmic as the worry begins to consume me, as the wrongness of the day settles in. I should have been more explicit with Shauna. I should have told her to bring him home after school. Fucking anything that would make this less of a waking nightmare. Will Blue be happy to see me? Probably not, when I've let it get this far. I should be happy that he hasn't taken Thana up on his offer to spirit him away. I've been such a dick. I shouldn't be surprised if Blue doesn't smile and leap into my arms like one of those bad plays. I need to make it up to him. I have time now. I just need the chance. I stare up at the doors of Shauna's building for longer than I should. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe that Nala would come out to get me, chastising me for making the mistake of assuming the little miss would drop off my familiar. But she doesn't come out. The banister light, which is always lit by this point in the afternoon, is out. There's no note on the door like there had been on mine. I stand in muted shock for far too long. Shauna's not me. I shouldn't be surprised that she didn't leave a note. And if the house is so concerned with packing for the upcoming trip, then it makes sense that some of the normal household things wouldn't be upheld and the staff would be busy. It's stupid, anyways. I came this far. I can't just stand outside the door. I hold my breath as I knock at Shauna's door. For a moment, no one answers. I don't hear Nala's voice calling for a moment as she rushes down, or the shifting of trunks to allow her a path to the door, and my heart almost freezes at the thought that they've already left. But the half-second is over, the latch clicks, and the door handle turns. It's not the quick, practiced, purposeful moves of the head servant. The door creaks open hesitantly, giving only a crack of space so that the individual on the other side of the door can peer out. It isn't Nala. It's Shauna on the other side of the door. And that is almost as shocking as the state she's in. Her eyes are red and puffy, her cheeks burning with a high red that has me stopping in my tracks. Shauna's not always perfectly composed. No one is. But I've never seen her cry. I've seen her rage, laugh until she falls out of her seat. Hell, I've seen the rare days when all professional training and natural noble grace fails, and she has a bad hair day and glares at everyone like it's their fault. I've seen her shed theatric, demure tears when the situation calls for it, but I have never seen her cry. "Kara? What are—" She pauses as her voice cracks and takes a moment to collect herself. "Come in, come in." She waves me inside, opening the door more now that she's seen who stands on the other side. There's no bags or trunks on the ground in the entranceway, and no sign of Nala. Not a single candle in this place is lit, though all of them seem to have been freshly replaced. Most interestingly, there's no scorched earth mark that's leveled this place to the ground. There's a ruffling sound of fabric and a short, soft sniffling sound as I do my best not to look, to give her time to compose herself and not draw attention to something she might end up hating me for. Still, I am her friend. It would be wrong if I just ignored this whole event. It would be wrong. "Shauna, are you all right?" I end up asking. I hate myself the moment the words have left my mouth, but I know they were necessary. It sounds so weak in comparison, so weak and useless. I want to ask her what's wrong and if she needs help hiding the body, but if I could have helped, she would have asked. She knows I'm here for her, even if I am a little dense sometimes. It was somewhere along the 3-month mark that we sat down and hashed this out, that I told her that my not reaching out wasn't a personal slight, but just a personality defect. That if she did slight me in some way she couldn't understand, I would tell her, not employ the backhanded curses of the nobility, that I would come when she called, that all she needed to do was ask. She knows I'm here for her. It's the chuckle that makes me look. The sound is dry and humorless and wrong, but she's smiling. Not the smile of the parties, but the soft, graceless upturn of her lips that doesn't show her teeth. She dabs the imaginary remains of something out of her eye with her long sleeve and shakes her head. "I'm fine," she says. Her voice is rough and low, and I wonder how long she was crying before I got here. She says she's fine, and while I don't believe her, I know that if it was something I could help with, then she would tell me. If it turns into something I could help with, she will tell me. All right. I nod along and try to get myself back on track. If she doesn't want me in her business, then I have to respect it. But that doesn't mean I have to stop trying to make her feel better. "I've got sweets." I hold up my peace offering between us and nearly fall back in relief as the tension in Shauna's body seems to soothe all at once. "You are a blessed man, but I assume you aren't here just to deliver sweets," she says, taking my package from me and opening it right at the low table in the entryway. I've never really seen her down here. This is more of a mingling parlor, but her preferred area for that is her rooms upstairs. It's so odd to see her down here, sitting on the reclining couches as she unwraps the sweets. I suppose she can do whatever she wants. It's her place, and there's no one here to call her on propriety. Or manners, as she all but shoves the whole bun in her mouth. It takes a second for my mind to get back on track and remind me of the reason I came here in the first place. "Well, you do have something of mine," I chuckle as Shauna tucks into her sweets. There's a chair with an ornately done backing and trim that sits right next to Shauna's couch. I sit myself on the cushioned armrest like a proper heathen and try to make sure I don't let my back touch the backrest. As pretty as it is, I know it hurts to lean on, which kinda defeats the purpose of a chair with a backrest, if you ask me. Shauna doesn't, but she does look up at me with a question in her eyes as her cheeks seem to be stuffed with sweets. "Blue," I remind her more bluntly, but it doesn't clear the confusion in her eyes. "What about him?" she asks, and suddenly it's my turn to wear the confusion. "I would like him back, please." "What are you talking about? I dropped him off last night." She looks at me like I'm crazy. "What? No, you didn't." I try to respond, but I lose my sentence as a fear that I didn't want to acknowledge pools in my stomach. Yeah, I'm actually very sure that I did," Shauna responds, oblivious to the personal meltdown that's happening right across from her. "No, I mean, Blue wasn't at home when I got there." The words tumble out of me before I can even think, my mind spiraling. Stars! Blue wasn't here. Blue wasn't with Shauna or Ande. Blue wasn't at home. Blue wasn't at home, and now he's missing. Now I have no idea where he might be. And, stars, I wasted a whole day. I wasted time feeling good, feeling fucking relieved while Blue was fucking missing. Where could he have gone? Stars, had he been there last night? "Kara!" I flinch away from Shauna's hand as she cups my jaw and forces me to look at her. I have no idea what I was saying to her in my absence of thought. "You need to calm down. Tell me what happened." "Blue's not at home." I say it again like it's the only thing I'm capable of thinking, but Shauna nods along like it's new information. "Okay, do you have any idea when this went down?" she asks calmly, slowly, and I can feel the way my breaths are cooling to be in time with hers. I went to go check on him this morning, but he wasn't in the room," I answer completely, as though if I give her enough detail, she'll be able to pinpoint where in this star-forsaken city my familiar is. "Okay, you didn't see him last night?" she asks, and I can't help the way the guilt and shame pools in my stomach. I was out of it, and I didn't... Shauna doesn't make me finish, but it doesn't stop the feeling that I'm going to cry. I should have checked on Blue. Fuck how shitty I was feeling. I should have checked on him. The dizzy feeling was nothing. I would have deserved it if I fell on my head. "Okay, I dropped him off as soon as I was done with my exams, but that was still pretty late in the day. Probably after you left, so we've got some time to account for," she says, taking her hand back, and I have to suppress the urge to follow her. I press my hands together until my knuckles are whitening. It was just a hand, just a simple platonic touch, something I've been lacking in the past weeks, but that's entirely my own fault. I shouldn't need someone's presence for stability. I should be fine. There are bigger problems to worry about. "Does anybody else know where you live?" She asks the question calmly, but the words have my heart rate skyrocketing. It's too similar to what Laurel had asked. It's too similar. They don't know I'm here. None of them do. And if they did, they sure as hell wouldn't have broken in just to take my familiar. I can count the number of people who know where I live on one hand. Shauna, Laurel, and 2 teachers, so okay, technically more if I count their familiars, but it still doesn't seem likely. Shauna was the one who dropped him off. Laurel had no interest, and I convinced Brendan and Linnell that I was an okay person, I think. They sure as hell wouldn't have broken into my house to get to Blue, not after all the informal teas they sent their familiar in for to test me. No, no one who would do this, I answer hollowly. All right, then this gets a little harder. She stands, and I'm so deep in my own head that it takes a few seconds to register that the hand in front of my face has been offered to me as an instruction to rise. We have to find him. The words echo in my head. I feel like I'm going to start hyperventilating, or pass out. Either way, my heart is thundering so loud in my chest that I'm surprised Shauna can't hear it. We will, but we can't do anything in here. Shauna's voice is gentle, counseling in a way that really shouldn't surprise me, but even still it makes me smile. When did Shauna become so reasonable? We go through the registry book. There's no real lead as to where Blue might be, but there are few enough places for lost familiars. We make a list, all the places that Blue might have ended up. The horror stories of the trappers play in my mind. But Blue had his collar. He'd said that it marked him as special, that it showed that his master trusted him. Surely that would be enough to keep people from calling trappers on him. Did he go out on his own? He must have known how dangerous that was, but thinking back, I did tell him that he was allowed outside. Maybe he just got a little stir-crazy and figured that since he couldn't go out in the backyard, he might take a little walk outside. I haven't taken him out very often, and I didn't really find the opportunity to familiarize him with the neighborhood. Maybe he got lost. With the collar, people would have known he wasn't a stray, so he might have been able to ask someone for, I don't know, guidance? They might have shown him to one of these places for lost familiars. Blue probably didn't know my address, so it might have taken a little longer to track me down than he'd realize. It's the most I can hope for. I want to believe that this was all just some wonky coincidence, that Blue wandered off and couldn't find his way back, that he'd made it to one of the places on the list, uninjured if a little scared. Shauna doesn't leave me alone. She comes with me, and brings Ante as we find our way. It's late in the day. I shouldn't be surprised that the person tending the counter is starting to clean up, but it makes my heart clench. If they're closing up, then that means the other places will probably be following in the same fashion. I hate the thought of leaving Blue overnight in one of these places. I shouldn't say that. I can't see where the familiars are kept, but the establishment itself seems rather upper crust. The building isn't opulent by any means, but they seem to understand the clients they serve. Excuse me, sir. We were wondering if we could trouble you for just a minute before you head off for the evening. Shauna speaks first, employing that blessedly innate tone that makes people want to accommodate her. The person at the desk, a rather lanky man with a uniform-like set of pressed black pants and white button-down, nods and makes his way back to his reception desk, doing his best to put away his duster as subtly as possible. Yes, what can I help you with? He stutters over his words before he rights himself, painting a generic, if palatable, smile on his face. We're looking for a familiar, a common cat with dark hair and light-colored eyes. Shauna describes Blue in the loosest possible terms, and I have to wonder if this is how it's done. I suppose mages are petty. If they came in and saw one of their competitors' familiars, they might be inclined to take them, just for the hell of it. It would be better to force them to describe their own familiar, though there's something a little more concerning in Shauna's description. I keep forgetting that Blue is an uncommon breed for mages. Surely that's a benefit now, when trying to select by simple description out of a lineup. Blue's breed is so uncommon that they couldn't have confused him with anyone else. But I got into a lot of trouble for taking Blue around and calling him a familiar. It took a long time for my peers and teachers to recognize Blue as a legitimate familiar. What if people didn't believe him when he told them that he was a lost familiar? But the attendant's eyes don't darken. He doesn't laugh at us and tell us the way to a common shelter to look for our lost pet. He just gives a half-hearted chuckle and says, "Pfft, aren't we all?" under his breath as he looks over the big book that must hold all of the familiar descriptions. That is odd. A month ago, anyone even remotely respectable would have turned their nose up at the thought of a common cat as a familiar. "I don't see any entries of the likeness you've described in our books for the past week. I'm afraid I must suggest that you check at another location for your missing familiar, and perhaps keep it on a better leash next time." He sighs, closing the book, and before I can jump over the desk and throttle him, Shauna has her hand on my arm, holding me back. "Would you be able to suggest where we might have better luck?" she asks, just as cordially as when we first entered. "I would suggest that you start closest to wherever you last saw your familiar. However, I do suggest that you start that search tomorrow. Most of our establishments will be closing soon, and even smaller facilities keep similar hours." It's not the answer I want, but it seems to be the answer we are going to have as Shauna pulls me from the shop and the man continues to close up. "We'll find him." Shauna doesn't look at me as we walk back, but the promise doesn't seem any less sincere. Shauna doesn't let me go home. I don't know if I'm angry or grateful. I want to be there if Blue magically turns up, but Shauna's right. The chances of that are astronomically small, especially if he's already spent a night outside. He's more than likely gotten picked up by now. He's smart and resourceful. She correctly assumes that I've left a note at my door anyways, and while it was in case Shauna came by while I picked up groceries, the sentiment will suffice. I can't be in that house today. Not for another night. Not when I know Blue is out there somewhere. He could be in danger, and it might as well have been me who put him there. Shauna needs to pack, and it's a worthy distraction. Nala comes back with groceries, and the way her back's acting up, she needs help cooking. It's a worthy distraction. 4 days pass in a blur as we go to every establishment in the city that might hold a lost familiar. We cross the names off our list, but the only thing we accomplish is the list growing shorter and shorter, until eventually there's nowhere left to go. So we report it to the school. Apparently, as common as it is for someone to kill their familiar in their first year, it's also something of a regularity for a newer student to lose their familiar, though I sense that it might be because of a slightly different situation. The first things they ask me are to retrace my steps and make sure I didn't leave my familiar at any establishments that require a familiar's leash be bolted to the wall. Because apparently, people just fucking leave and forget they came in with their familiar quite often. The school posts notices on the bulletin boards all across campus. I don't know how much it helps, but I suppose every little bit counts. If any students see anything, the notice lists the ways to contact the school, which can find me just as easily. It feels frustrating that there are so few people on campus, that there aren't more people that I can spread the word to, but when I try to take this to the Envy, they don't have anything they can do. They give me paperwork. Even as I try to explain the situation to them, even as I emphasize the necessity of a timely response, the fact of the matter is that this isn't being treated like a missing person. Blue isn't a missing person. Blue is a thing. He's my property. If I want to do anything, I need to fill out a lost item and reclamation form. I can report him stolen if I think there's substantial evidence, but all that means is that an officer is actually going to look at the papers before it gets filed away. I know how important it is to be quick about this, to find Blue before anything bad happens, that the first few days, the first hours, are so critical. But it feels more and more hopeless. And as the days drag on, the week ends, and Shauna can no longer put off her trip. I walk the streets that night, I don't know what I'm looking for. I jump every time I see movement in an alley. I want Thana. I need him. The strays won't talk to me otherwise. They all just run the second they hear footsteps. Instinct's hard won, that I shouldn't be judging so harshly. But even still, I want Thana to jump out and ask me why I've dragged my sorry ass out here. Or better yet, I want him to tell me to leave Blue alone. I think anything would be better than this hell of not knowing one way or the other if Blue was safe. If he wanted to leave, I wouldn't stop him. Okay, there would probably be some crying, and I would ask him to at least stay for the worst of winter. But if he really wanted to leave, I wouldn't stop him. I'd rather see him protected, though. I'd rather know he was safe. Thana has to know that. Even if Blue ran away, Thana... We didn't get off on a great foot, but I like to think that we came to at least be able to tolerate each other's presence. I give up when I can't feel my face anymore. No angry snarl or full-body tackle from the caracal of the hour in sight. The house is like a plane entirely removed from the rest of the world. It is exactly as I left it, and yet so different, so much colder, so much more empty. My footsteps seem to echo on the tile as I crumple up the note I'd left for Shauna so many days ago. I don't even bother with tea. I don't think I could bring myself to if I tried. I have a little of the suma root left that I haven't made into the tea. It tastes bitter and terrible, tacky and wrong as I grind it between my teeth and swallow. I deserve nothing more. My bag feels too heavy as I dump it on the table to rid myself of its weight. It's full of papers, what few I had left of the missing notices I got from the school after posting them in every conceivable location, and the forms from the Envy. There's a flash of rage that courses through me as I look at the papers. Oh yes, I'm missing my familiar, just the same as a missing lamp or collection of books. There's no urgency there. None at all. Stars forbid that they should have to waste time in their stretched budgets to look into cases like this. And don't forget to note if there's any evidence of foul play, because those are the cases they actually read. It's not productive, but I want to punch something. Blue deserves better than this. He deserves better than a few posters that some distracted students at the end of the semester might see, and an object claims case that's just looking to get filed away, never to see the light of day again. Stars, it would be so much easier if he was an object. Then I could just... No. Stars, no, it couldn't be that simple. I all but run to my workshop, diving through the shelves and books until I have all the supplies I need, including the files from Blue's sale. Blue is classified as an object, as a possession. He always has been. It may be petty of me, but I hope to all the stars in the sky that just this once that classification will serve him instead of hindering. I set the circle, drawing the sigil straight from the book with enough precision to make Berg proud. I'm already writing a fine line with this shit as it is. I'm twisting the words and the rules of the spell further than it seems to allow. I don't want it to fail because I made a mistake. The incense is lit, and it takes very little time before the thick scent covers the room. The candles are lit in order, a mirrored image of the particular cardinal lights I want to draw from, the spaces of plasma that look directly down from this night's sky, the lights that have the best view of the area I am searching. The incantation is simple. It is the concentration that's not. It's one of the easiest spells to teach, one that we studied extensively, learned how to tweak for our own ends. The particularly powerful teaching moment is the concentration. We had to learn how to make a conductive space in our minds, how to focus, how to meditate. It's hard for people to meditate wholeheartedly, to clear all thoughts from your mind by the one specific thing that you need. Divination is tricky. It is fraught with complexities and logical fallacies, but this spell is simple. The lights, the incense, the incantation calling upon the seeker, and 10 minutes of concentration. It's simple. It's been trial-tested thousands of times, perfected over the past 100 years. For me, 10 minutes of concentration is nothing. I haven't been able to stop thinking about Blue for days. The haziness of the spell takes me, and my vision departs from my body. I'm somewhere else, somewhere in the ether, and as much as it horrifies me, I don't back away. There shouldn't be any other sensations, not when I've set up the spell to let me see the object I'm trying to locate, but I can't help but feel cold. A tremor takes me over as the spell continues, the cold seeping into my fingers, into my bones, the ringing in my head so sharp that it is nearly a distraction. My stomach lurches as my vision comes back to me, but all I see is my workshop, the candles burning low and the incense burned out. It didn't work. And suddenly, my vision goes blurry again. I should have known. I should have known it wouldn't work. But it doesn't stop the way the sob gets caught in my throat. The tears still roll down my face. Blue's not a thing. He's his own person, a living being that the spell can't look in on like that. It can only locate an object or scry its location. There are reasons that spells don't exist that allow that for living beings. Blue's not a possession. He never was. It makes me mad that I ever tricked myself into thinking this spell might have worked. It makes me mad at everyone who ever said familiars were objects, that pets could be possessions. It's wrong. It's just wrong that someone who thought Blue was just an object to be traded around. Someone who expressed a clear interest in getting me to sell Blue to them like he was just a fucking mug that she could re-gift. Well, actually, he'd be a gift for my little brother. Well, I've been looking for a common cat to replace the one our father sold when we were kids. I know who has Blue.